All right, welcome to episode 12 of the Cub Necessities. I got Ben Green, great photographer, mastermind, visual artist. Devin Olson. Nothing for him.
I'm wondering what you were going to say. You gave Ben a whole intro. I'm like, what's he going to say for me? Unemployed,
lives at his parents. Great guy, though.
Hey, I made the song, so
that's right.
right?
Devin did make the intro song. So
Musical genius.
A round of applause.
Hey, I got one. There we go.
So before we get into our episode about the occult and cult things, I want to address one thing off the top for all the listeners. If you go to Twitter and you look up at Cub Necessities, that is not my Twitter account. Okay? That is the Twitter account for a hardcore gay pornographer who does.
I'm looking it up.
Don't look it up, dude.
Don't. I did it.
Look it up.
What? Don't?
I did. Don't.
It's like, bro, it is so graphic.
I'm going incognito, but I'm doing it.
Carl had to delete his history twice.
Yeah, no, it's a gay porn Twitter account, and I'm unfortunate enough to just share the name with them. So if you're listening to this podcast and you want to follow us on Twitter, it's at Cub Podcast, not at Cub Necessities, because, well, unless you're into gay porn, you can follow them. But just for the podcast, follow at Cub
It's
Podcast.
not just normal gay porn. I mean,
no.
You need to clarify this a little bit more.
Bear BDS.
Oh my God.
Gay porn. So
yes.
I mean,
oh my
that's
God.
fine. Hey,
Jesus
look,
Christ. I didn't even know you
2020.
could do this.
2020, just live and love, baby. But also Devin's looking at it and he sees how fucking hardcore it is.
Daddy's boy.
Dude.
That's their bio. Daddy's
No.
boy.
Now, Kyle, have you thought about doing a strategic partnership with Cub Necessities
Yes, yeah.
to boost both
We're gonna
brands?
do a merchandise
Oh,
collaboration.
A penis lock customized with your logo.
It's gonna be a cock cage with my podcast logo on it.
You're lucky that I don't know how to screen share.
Oh,
putting that
dude,
shit up
yeah.
there.
Don't screen share because we can't post this anywhere.
Oh yeah.
Violate every community guideline out there.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I have a question.
Yeah.
I didn't think you could put that on Twitter. I thought there's
No, dude. Twitter.
That's what I thought as
Twitter
well.
is the Wild West for pornography.
Okay, so you could
can
just
put anything.
Okay. I don't
Yeah.
know. I guess
dude, they don't care. They don't care. Porno.
I'll keep that in mind
porn
for my
stars
porn
and
platform.
OnlyFans girls post all their nudes there. No one cares.
No one cares. Okay. I'm going to start looking into that then.
You can, dude. I mean, a lot of people do it. It's so unfortunate though, dude. Like, because obviously the name Cub Necessities is because my nickname is Bear Cub. Because at one point I had a mustache, wore a bathrobe, and I looked like an older gay man. It was funny, and now I realize how that plant backfired because it led exactly to where it was meant to go. Because now,
you should have saw that one coming.
yeah,
This
honestly,
is what
we shot ourselves in
happens.
the foot there. We have too many listens to change the name now, though.
Did you
This is
not
what-
look it up? Like,
Dude, I
check
did
Twitter.
zero. The only thing I looked up was like, is that name taken on iTunes or Spotify? Nope, that's mine then. And and now that's where we're at.
All right.
So if also if you're a guy looking for gay porn and you happen to stumble upon our podcast by accident, just subscribe, man.
Yeah, no, you could still. They're not mutually
you can go back to
exclusive.
gay porn at any time, but these podcasts are an hour long, so just give it a listen and then go watch gay porn. But
Yeah.
Porque no los dos.
Okay, no.
Okay.
That's
All
funny.
right. Now we got all the gay porn and Twitter account debacle out of the way. Time for the cult. This episode, we're going to talk about cults, interesting, most fascinating ones, the shitty, lame ones that didn't really take off, and how do cults get started, and how do we start one? More importantly, so Devin,
There you go.
give me some good cult info.
Some cult info. Well, the first thing that's always interesting to me when I talk to people about cults is the fine line that may or may not exist between cults and religions.
Mm-hmm.
And that obviously can get testy with religious people because they don't view their religion as a cult. And I don't think many people in cults actually view it as cults. When you're in a cult, you view it as the Enlightenment. You don't view it as a cult. So that's always where I like to start the discussion when I talk to people about cults, just because it's really, really interesting, because religions, if you go back far enough, were probably considered cults.
Yeah, well,
Right?
Joe Rogan has that great bit in one of his Netflix specials. The only difference between a religion and a cult is in a religion, the guy who started it is dead. And that's basically it. That's Scientology. Like literally every single cult that you could think of that has somehow managed to become a religion. Like, I mean, most Norse gods and religions, those were all cults, pagan cults.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually the people who told those stories died, and then they became religions, and then they didn't really become anything. But like, yeah, literally every single person who's ever started a religion was a cult leader who then died, and then people were like, oh, you know what, he had some good ideas.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the only requirement though, or do you think there's like a follower threshold that a cult has
definitely.
to hit? Like if they capture, like, let's say a continent, or back like when Judaism and Islam started, like let's say like 7 tribes of people, like do you think that's like enough to elevate them to the status? Could that leader still be alive and they've just convinced so many people to believe in their deity?
Well, okay, if you think about this, like Anthony Robbins, right? He's basically like one of the most successful motivational speakers in the world, but he's a motivational speaker and people follow him religiously, but he's not dead, right? Now think about what Jesus of Nazareth was. He's basically a motivational speaker and then he died, right?
Yeah.
I think the difference between the two, and I like your point about the thresholds, Ben, is like those guys have huge followings, both Jesus and Anthony Robbins, right? But the difference is that one, people fight wars over, and the other one, people pay $2,500 and meet at a convention center in Tampa, Florida. So it's really about the threshold of how many people give a fuck about it.
But people also pay money to go see the Pope and go on pilgrimages.
Yeah, no, that's my point is though, is that you know, there's 30,000 people that might go see Anthony Robbins. There's a billion people that would love to see the Pope, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that you're right. It's literally a numbers game. So, and that's, I think, the issue that most cults fall into is they start beating up and or sexually assaulting all their members. And that usually tends to like hinder new memberships.
So they need better PR is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you're as big as the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the whole Boston thing, right?
Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing though, Devin, is it wasn't just one guy. Like in a cult, it's one guy usually fucking all its members.
Yeah.
What Catholics did is they diversified. They're like, hey, you guys can all do it. Just fuck all the kids you want. So that way they can't point fingers at anyone. Dude, if you don't think Pope John Paul II wasn't like, oh, you guys want to fuck kids? I don't care. Yeah, that's fine.
Don't see anything in the book against it.
Yeah, there's not one sentence in the Bible that says don't fuck our kids. So, you know, I mean, I don't know if that's a fact. There might be a couple pages about not fucking kids, but they're not reading them.
Well, that's the interesting thing about religious scripture is you can interpret it however the fuck you want.
Yeah.
Right? You can twist it to support your own ideas, and that's what both religious leaders do and cult leaders. They're taking these concepts and they're interpreting it in whatever way best fits their own goals. And a lot of times that means getting people to listen to them and believe their bullshit. Again, a lot of people, not everybody is full of shit that is standing in front of people trying to preach some sort of virtue, some sort of path to enlightenment. Not everyone is full of shit, but sometimes they are.
Well, yeah, most of the time, most people are full of shit. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, people are full of shit, but I think a lot of times people actually believe their shit, and they're not.
Yeah.
It's not a calculated using bullshit, but many times it is. Right? Many times, especially when you're talking about what we consider cults nowadays, one of the defining things of what we think about as cults is a guy who's completely full of shit, and he gets a bunch of people to believe in his bullshit. And he knows he's full of shit.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
That's the key thing, I think, of what we could today consider cult, like air quotes, quote.
Yeah. So a good example. Well, what's your fit? I mean, like when I think of cult, I usually think of, the Axiom or the what was the David Koresh and
The Davidians.
the Branch Davidians,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yep.
then I mean Jonestown. I mean, there's literally so many different iterations of cults. What's the one that was in Eastern Oregon? The What's their name? Devin?
Rajneesh Param.
Rajneesh Param.
Yep.
Yeah, that one got me freaking fired up when I first learned about it.
Well, tell us a little bit about it.
So my introduction to it is actually fairly. I was in college when someone first mentioned it, which is actually fairly late considering I lived my whole life in Oregon, and it's like one of the few exciting things in recent Oregon history, that caught national headlines. So when I heard about it, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go home and literally read the Wikipedia page, like all the way through.
Yeah.
And then, from there, I did all kinds of research. And the whole time I was thinking this would make the best goddamn documentary. Like, there's people still alive in Antelope that lived through this. I had all these ideas. And then, like, I don't know, a year or two later, Netflix put out that documentary series.
Mark Duplass was like, I'm ahead of you, baby.
Yeah, no, they were working on it probably before I even
Oh,
started doing the research. But they did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
For anybody who hasn't watched Wild Wild Country, should absolutely see it. And it will do a way better job than my quick synopsis will be. But regardless, basically Rajneeshi, or later known as Osho, they also call him Bhagwan, and the guy changed his name.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know, maybe he fucked a bunch of people over and it's like witness protection, kind of like change your name.
Yeah.
Get out, hopefully. I don't know. He changed his name a few times and I don't remember why. But he originally was, before he came to Oregon, he was doing stuff in India. And he had a, kind of this complex, and he was, just basically the ideas are fairly straightforward and actually easy to understand why people were following it. You have a lot of Westerners who are going over to India and they're looking for like meaning in their life. Yeah. You're talking about atheists, non-religious people who don't have that kind of built-in meaning of life in their belief system. And very successful Westerners from the United States, Canada. You're talking about like lawyers, doctors, that kind of thing. And they interview a few of them in the documentary, so they have like very specific, people with their occupational stories. But, that kind of thing. Very successful Westerners. And, they achieved so much. They, let's say, for example, went to law school and, joined a practice, passed the bar exam and had a successful law career, and basically get to this kind of point of midlife crisis where, all right, well, I achieved all this, but I'm not any happier having achieved it. Well, what's the point of it all? Why are we here? I don't believe in God, but this seems meaningless and pointless. Get real nihilistic with it. So they start going to Rajneesh, his whatever's complex was called, in India. So Bhagwan Rajneesh, he started this kind of a cult, but it was a lot of it was more of a
like a guru practice almost.
Yeah,
like
really, that's what it was.
Deepak Chopra or
a spiritual getaway for people that ended up in. For a lot of them, they just don't end up leaving. Yeah. So they go there, we go to Bhagwan's whatever, and for the weekend, and we'll have this spiritual weekend, and maybe it will give me answers. And then a lot of people end up like just going back kind of permanently. They quit their jobs, they move to India. So what Bhagwan decides, I guess, is that the Indian government is basically pressing him hard for some of the stuff he's doing. And I don't remember the details on that. But basically decides we need to go somewhere with more constitutional rights for freedom of religion. And that pointed them towards the United States.
And they chose Oregon.
And they chose the United States. And so they looked at different properties. And I don't remember what the reasoning was, but they found this property in Wasco County in northeastern central Oregon.
Yep.
It's north central. And yeah, and so they found this plot of land and they bought it and they set up shop in Oregon. And it started off as, for the people, so the small town is called Antelope. There's like, I don't know, 150 residents or something. It's tiny. And that's the nearest town. And it started off like, wait, who bought what? They're kind of confused for a while, and then things just really started to escalate over the course of a few years to the point of the largest bioterrorism attack in American history occurred as a result when they put, I believe it's salmonella in, I think it was a handful, several restaurants in the Dalles, Oregon.
They went to Dallas, Oregon, and they went to a bunch
Dalles.
The Dalles.
The Dalles, yeah.
Not Dallas. They went to the Dalles, and then they put a bunch of salmonella in salad bars.
Yeah, salad bars, Burgerville.
So if you don't think Sizzlers were bad enough, dude, a bunch of fucking hippies were putting salmonella in your salad bar.
If you're ever at a salad bar or a buffet and you think this is shitty, just be glad you're not in 1980, the Dallas, Oregon.
Dude, I don't think I'm going to be eating at a salad bar for a while with coronavirus.
I think from now on, buffets, salad bars, those are fucking done.
Those sneeze screens over them do nothing to coronavirus, man.
No, dude. Post COVID-19, there's no more salad bars.
Yep.
And how are you supposed to commit voter intimidation if you can't put salmonella in salad bars? I don't know how.
Dude, that might fix our democracy. Is no more salad bars.
But yeah, so that was basically the peak of it. That was where things get. So there's so much that happened in between there.
Yeah.
But the thing, there's a lot of it is the chick, Sheila.
Yeah.
Well, she was like, so Bhagwan is just like, it kind of looks like he's just like
he was
fried.
Out, dude.
Yeah, like he's just fried and he's just floating around. Like he doesn't seem to know at all what's going on. And she's out there, she like murdering a doctor that was going to kill Bhagwan.
She attempted. I don't think they actually killed her, but yeah, it kind of seemed like she kind of usurped his power and then just started going off the fucking rails.
Yeah, and so what they did is they decided that they wanted to take over. Earlier on, they wanted to take over Antelope like city council. So they started putting in Rajneesh members. Well, they start growing and growing and growing, where they have hundreds of members. And they've been there long enough to where they can legally vote. So they go in there and they vote all their Rajneeshis in their red robes into the city council. And they just take over the town of Antelope. And the residents of Antelope, there's nothing they can do. And so that's when it really started to get the attention of like the district attorney at the time in Oregon, and really started to get the state government is like looking at this, but then eventually the federal government, because then the next goal was, okay, we got Antelope, let's get Wasco County, and the Dalles is the capital of Wasco County. So that's where they have their city halls, their elections, and everything. So that was why they put salmonella in, was to try to dissuade people from voting because they were all shitting themselves, and a few people died. It was like something like 700 people got sick, and I don't remember how many died.
Went to a salad bar in one day.
Why didn't they just do
No, it was more than just salad bar. It was like there was like 5 restaurants. Have you ever been to the Dalles? There's not that much going on there.
Yeah,
there's not much going on. So they found like the 5 out of like 7 restaurants, and there's probably more than that. Sorry for anybody from the Dalles. So there's some stuff there, but they just got like, there's like a Burgerville there now. I don't know.
A Boogerville. Ooh.
Boogerville.
Had one of those when I was a kid.
Yeah, dude.
But so they went for everybody.
Dude, so this is funny. So my dad growing up, when he lived in Holland, right?
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, his next door neighbor, the like dad of that family, fucking sold all his possessions, like liquidated all his bank accounts, and left his family and moved to Antelope, Oregon, to join the Rajneeshis.
Way.
Yeah, dude.
That's crazy.
Did he give all the money to the cult?
That's what they did. So that was like the initiation is basically you come in and you be like, I want to be a part of this. I want to be enlightened. And they're like, all right, well, you have to join the commune by giving us your life savings. And people would do it. And that's why the famous thing was like the 70 Rolls Royces or something stupid. I don't remember what it was, but
that's how you know it's some horse shit is when they start spending all the money on Rolls Royces.
On Rolls Royces.
Yeah.
But they built that place up. I mean, it wasn't, they started off with a plot of dirt.
Yeah.
And they built it into a complex. It wasn't like they were living in tents or
like
teepees.
The Waco with the Davidians.
Yeah, no, they had like full blown like farm. They were agriculture. I mean, they were.
Dude, they had one building. I remember seeing it in the documentary. They had one building that was just for group orgies. So they really were like a successful. I mean, they were smart, and they.
That's the sign of them being smart for you, Kyle.
Dude, they literally had a fuck hut. Like they had a fucking
a love shack. They had
just
a love
for
shack.
everyone to bang it. Yeah, and dude, like they show footage of it in the documentary where it's just like all these dirty hairy hippies like. They're just all fucking and like huffing nitrous
and they're freaking
whatever.
out and they're making noises like making noises. Yeah. Crazy shit. Yeah, and it was and the crazy one is when they started busing people in. So they're trying to like win these elections.
Yeah.
So all over the country, they bought buses and they just went around and just picked up homeless people like from all over the country, not just western half of the United States. Like I think they went all the way over to the East Coast, like New York City even. And they just started scooping up these homeless people that they have nothing going on from like, hey, we have somewhere for you to live. And they're like, cool. And so they bring them in and they become Rajneeshis so they could build their base so that they could sway the elections better.
Can you imagine being a homeless person and like you get swooped up off the streets of New York City and then, 3 weeks later you make it to Oregon and you're in the middle of a hairy hippie love shack orgy.
Dude, I can't
middle
sounds.
I wish that sounds like the best life ever, dude.
And you still haven't showered.
But no one notices because they all smell the same.
Neither of they. Yeah.
But you're getting laid now, and you never thought that was going to happen again.
Yeah, you're like, hey, man, this is a cool fuck party. What's going on?
Who
Dirty
do you want me
Mike
to
and the
vote
boys
for?
are here.
You guys got a Prius?
We're going to turn this place into a soup kitchen, if you know what I mean. Dude, I mean, that's what's crazy about what you just said, Devin, is that like the homeless problem in San Francisco and Portland for a long time was largely contributed to the fact that they bust in these homeless people from all over. And then once they basically liquidated the Rajneeshis, all these guys were like, well, fuck, we don't have families. We don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah, where are we going to go?
So they all just migrated to the coast. And I mean, I'm sure a good portion of them still live here to this day.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe. I don't know the odds of that. But like, I mean,
I don't know the life expectancy of an ex-cult member homeless person, but
yeah, I can't imagine it's.
But I mean, that was
great. But
the whole thing went down. I mean, they were done and nothing by the late '80s.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's possible.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, they'd probably be if they bust in like at 20 or something, and then they'd be 60, 70 now. I mean. Yeah. I mean, it's totally possible.
Well, and that's the thing is, where are they going to go when it shut down? What were they going to take a bus back to New York City?
Yeah, no. I mean, they kind of
they went to the closest city to where they were. I mean, the Dallas and Portland are only 100 miles apart.
Yeah,
if that. I don't even know if it's even that far. So, yeah. I can get to Portland and live under the bridges there, and now you see, and obviously Portland's homeless issue has gotten a lot worse in recent years, so you can't attribute it all to that. But it's kind of becoming known for its homeless problem, and there's a chance that stems back to the late '80s and Rajneesh Param just bringing them from all over.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like if there's all of a sudden a large influx, and then people are generous to the homeless population, then right, that sets a precedence. Like, oh well, this is a homeless-friendly city.
Yeah,
and then that just perpetuates. So it's possible. I mean, it's just so crazy that like a bunch of dirty, smelly people who want to fuck each other can cause that much havoc.
Oh yeah, because
over peace and love religion. Like,
well, they had
what supposedly started as that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They all devolve. They all like become some sort of fucking insane. The thing is, you got to be a little bit either naive or super stupid to even get yourself in there. So when things fall apart and you don't have the infrastructure of your community, you're still a fucking idiot. So now you got to navigate the world as a fucking idiot without your fucking cult leader to help you out. So it's like people who are drawn to that automatically, I think, are just stupid in the first place. So eventually it's all just going to get boiled down to a horrible situation. You know what I mean?
But I think
I don't know if I quite agree with that.
I
think
tell me one smart person who with a little bit of logic and reasoning would look at this and go, "Oh, that seems like a good idea."
Well, you're talking once it was crazy, but before it was crazy, it was just peace and love. And then once you get in there, now you're subjected to the psychological manipulations of a cult of personality, right? I mean, it's one of those things to say, like, is everybody in communist Russia communist? Right?
No.
Like you can think of
everybody in Nazi Germany wasn't a Nazi.
Exactly. That's the other. So you have Stalinist Russia, you have Nazi Germany, you have these examples, and there's people who supported Adolf Hitler that weren't necessarily Nazis. But so that's the key thing to a cult is the manipulation, the mass social engineering and psychological manipulation. So when I started explaining the Rajneeshpuram, I did make a point to explain that these were actually like lawyers and doctors that were originally going over.
Okay.
And I could sympathize with wanting more from life than money. Right. And I think a lot of people can agree that there should be more to life than money and success, but they don't necessarily know how to go about it. Yeah. So although it's funny to laugh at people caught and stupid things.
Well, okay,
I don't know if we could just write it off as stupidity alone, because I think there's a lot of manipulation.
My point is that 9 times out of 10 people who join cults or get manipulated into a cult are generally just like ideologues. They're people that aspire to something greater than themselves or something other than that. But usually in that instance, right? Like, even if you are a doctor or a lawyer and you are, a smart individual, there's something lacking within, whether it is your social ability or your social skills or your social intelligence. Something there is missing, I think, 9 times out of 10 with someone who has a void within them that is going to seek out and somehow get ensnared into a cult. You see what I'm saying?
So I disagree with you so much, though.
I do, but it's
I think
so
fundamentally
insane.
You're wrong.
Are you telling me that if someone was like, "Hey Ben, we started this social group. It's really fun. Where we can fill all."
We lost him.
We lost him.
Your whole life is going to change because of it. And then you're like, "Oh, that sounds good. I'm in 100%." You're fucking stupid if you dive in head first on that. I'm sorry, but that's just the reality.
So I can see where you're coming from. Like look, let's say I chose to be a doctor growing up, make my parents happy, went to college, went to medical school, did residency. I'm now like $500,000-$600,000 in debt, get out of debt. And now I've got a shitload of money. I've got a house. I've got a few cars, like all this kind of stuff. And I'm still feeling like something's missing. Somebody's like, "Hey, give me everything you've worked for your entire life, and I'll give you the one thing." We've got unlimited minutes on our meeting. Sweet.
Man, Zoom. What is going on with Zoom? It's
I don't
distracting
understand
the shit out of us right now.
But it's like, give me everything, and I'll fill that void. The one thing you're missing, I'll fill that. I can understand you, Kyle, being upset with somebody that's doing that and being like, "You're a fucking idiot. You just gave up everything for the promise of something you can't even see. It's not even tangible. Like you don't even know what you're missing. Go to a therapist, find out." But I think like the reality of the situation, and we see it a lot in like shows like Waco and whatnot, where it's people who will run across somebody. Like, let's say like I went to like a Zen retreat or something like that, and there's a spiritual leader that they brought in that's visiting there, and I like what he's saying. He makes me feel like a more complete person, like I'm following like what I need to be following in life, and I choose to like keep following him and keeping up with his teachings, and I'm donating to him. I mean, that's what people do with their preachers. That's what people do at these mega churches. Like every single religion, like even when I would go to synagogue as a kid, like they're taking your money constantly. Like you have to realize that like the majority of this world is giving some form of contribution towards some form of religion. And like we talked about at the beginning of this call, like nobody believes they're in a cult.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
you just don't know. Like think the craziest thing about Christianity to me is like, you know, Jesus was alive for a short amount of time. He's preaching, people are following his beliefs, and then he dies. And then we've got all these people that are taking his beliefs, whether he was the son of God or not. We've got all of these people who are compounding on his beliefs and writing books about it. And now over half the world, right? Or half the world believes in Jesus's teachings, but they're not even his teachings at this point. Like it's the same thing with Judaism, how rabbis over the century will take books like the Talmud and like write and argue with rabbis from like 300 years apart. Like these aren't the original ideas. Like we're all following a different version than what it originally was. So what even is religion? Because it's like a weird fucked up game of telephone at this point.
Well, dude, that's literally like all religions. Like if you think about what we know about Norse like gods and things like that, that was written by a Christian monk in like 2000 EC. So like he was a Christian monk author who just like was like, well, I guess I'll try and compile some of these Norse stories. So we have no idea contextually what the Norse religion actually was without someone fucking putting their Christian touch to it, right? Same with like Greek religions. That was Plato was basically the one who compiled all the Greek gods and myths and stories and things like that.
And that's one man's interpretation of it.
And that's one. Yeah, you're right. So I agree with you, right? Like it can be manipulated or it can be changed, or you're right. It's just basically a fucked up game of telephone.
Well, then the other thing, the next level is when you have these texts written in ancient Hebrew and we're trying to translate them into modern day English or Spanish or whatever modern language. I mean, it's not just time, person to person in the same language. It's time, person to person, telephone. Oh, also we have to try to translate it.
How did these words change over centuries too? Like they mean different things than they did a few centuries ago.
Yeah, you look
at
Old
English is so fucking different.
We don't even have to go to Old English. Just think about words like the word gay and how that's changed, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
I mean, that's just been in the last few decades, and now we're talking about hundreds of years just within ancient Hebrew, and then we're gonna try to like translate it into present day English, and you're just gonna lose a lot of it because who fluently reads ancient Hebrew? I mean, you may be able to study it, but unless you live within that culture, you're gonna miss so many nuances.
Well, it's like all of us in America who are like, oh yeah, I love watching these Viking shows. Everybody's talking in this like English accent. They didn't talk in a fucking English accent.
Yeah, they sounded like Swedish Chef. They're like, our skirt of Erdebard. It's
Everybody that thinks like Jesus was white. Like, I mean, that's a little bit different. Like we know like he wasn't. And yet like all the depictions of him.
Hey, not my Jesus.
The other the thing that's interesting about that
definitely not mine.
The linguistic point kind of there that you're making, Ben, is it even goes further of like if you think about if you watch a movie that takes place in like pre-colonial United States, UK, right? So Britain, like Britain Kingdom, they're all speaking with like present day British accents, where in reality our American dialect of English is actually closer to what their dialect would have been because we got left with that dialect and then it changed a lot over time in Britain. I mean, language changes so fast that you had like basically how they spoke, and then you drop some of those people in the United States and leave some in the UK, and then add time, then they start to change. Those languages start to diverge from each other. So yeah, you know, we have these shows with people speaking British accents in the UK, but they wouldn't have actually sounded like that because their accent has changed so much since you know the last however many 100 years, depending on when that show takes place.
You know what? So, I read a study that like George Washington and most of the founding fathers, like their version of English in 17 whatever, what was it, 70 76?
1776.
Yeah, their dialect of English was like the most similar to a Boston accent, which I
Mhm.
find
Yeah.
fucking hilarious, dude. Could you imagine?
They also all had wooden teeth.
Yeah, could you imagine
Yeah.
like all the founding fathers with their wigs, like it's just like in a Boston accent,
Down by the
telling
harbor.
down by the harbor, we gotta get these fucking Brits out of here, man.
Yeah.
These fucking Brits are really fucking ruining our lives over here.
Hey, the Brits are coming down by the harbor.
Yeah, dude. I'm gonna go fucking drink a Sam Adams, go kick some red.
What's crazy to me though, it's like when you take words in like English, like if I told you like, hey Kyle, like you want to get some spotted dick later, like that's completely different than what it means in
I'd direct you to a certain Twitter account, but
but it's so when I was studying Spanish, like I know Kyle, you're partially fluent. I don't know about you, Devin. Do you speak any
Devin
Spanish?
speaks way better Spanish than I do.
Okay.
Devin's like he's like
At one
fluent
point,
adjacent.
I was It's been a while. It's been a while. It's like kind of a long answer. It's a complicated answer, but yeah. I've studied Spanish pretty heavily.
So I remember when I was in school, and my girlfriend's family is all from Mexico, and her little brother's in high school right now, and he's studying Spanish too, and he's learning the same things I did, where you go through the different dialects in South America, which are all branches from what people brought with them from Spain.
Yeah.
And each country has different meanings. Like there's like 5 different words for cool, and like depending on where you're from, in like some people just say bueno, some people say chévere, like different things like that. And the other countries, like they don't know what the fuck people are saying when they're talking about stuff like that, because it means something completely different depending on where you're from.
The stories that I've heard of, like kind of the famous example of that is when groups of people from different Spanish speaking countries are together in the same room, you know, what, like a family gathering or something. And, you know, there's like, oh, these are our cousins from, I don't know, from Nicaragua, and we're here in Argentina or whatever. But whenever these groups of people, there's a lot of stories. The classic example is they stand around like the dinner table or in the kitchen, and they grab foods and be like, what do you call it? And they'll say it, and then they'll laugh. You know, and then, well, what do you call this? And they'll say it, and then they'll laugh, right? Like, because their words are so different for like foods, and that just becomes like the common thing that they'll do. It's like if you look at like a tortilla from Spain is totally different than like a Mexican tortilla that we know of as a tortilla. And
but like, let's tie this back in, because we bring this back into the context of religion and how, you know, essentially all religions start out as cults. Like, you know, 3,000 people aren't just spawned as like fucking Christians or Buddhists or anything like that. Like they're born into families that are believing into something like that, and it started by somebody. But like over thousands of years with these older religions, or hundreds of years with newer religions like Mormonism and Scientology,
former cults, now religions.
But just like the game of telephone that we've been playing for so long, and with each different preacher or father or rabbi that's taught, it's changed based off their perception and the way that people interpret it, and the way they transfer that down to their kids and teach their grandkids and their great grandkids. Like I feel like we're following some great deviation of what once was.
Just like Argentinian Spanish is a deviation of you know, Spanish is now. That's a really good point, because language naturally evolves, and why wouldn't religious teachings as well? And they do.
Yeah, I mean, that's all things with. I mean, you think about even social norms.
It's just culture. Culture just evolves.
Culture. Yeah, culture just evolves, and language, religion, social norms.
So I got a question for you guys.
Yeah.
So, like when you look up like a famous quote, like let's say you're posting on Instagram and you're like, oh, I fucking love this.
I would never do that, Ben. I'm not an idiot. Keep going though.
Feel attacked. But it's like you look up a famous quote, and like I can't remember any right now because I'm blanking.
Let's see.
Like,
Mark Twain. Mark Twain said, "Don't let your schooling get in the way of your education."
Okay,
Yeah,
no.
One of my favorite quotes of
Abraham
all
Lincoln
time.
once said,
Okay.
"Shake it if you shake it like your mama gave."
Back it up. No, but it's like there's one that like I think Kevin Durant said, and it wasn't actually Kevin Durant, but that's who I heard it from. It turned out it was somebody else that said it like hundreds of years ago. But when we're talking about religion and it's like, oh, like I don't care if it's deviated, it's still the word of God. For me, it's like that quote that I once heard, that wasn't the word of somebody that said it hundreds of years ago. That's the word of Kevin Durant. Like how true is it? Like, yes, it might have stemmed from that, but if that wasn't the original meaning that God meant for it to have, how can you be sure that you're following the word of God?
Because people like to believe they're infallible, dude, and like
Yeah.
people who, especially people in whatever the year 800, who had the ability to read, were like, I'm basically God, man. I control everything. Knowledge here.
Fire, wheel, I got that.
Yeah, it's like
I'm the only one with ink.
Yeah,
and
if you're the only
paper.
guy who knew how to write and
Before
read,
the
you're like,
printing
hey, guess what?
press.
I run things now, okay? What I write down, that's what's up.
That's what ancient historians were, though. Like, that's what my degree is in. Like, that's what we studied. And the biggest thing that we had to talk about is like viewing history anachronistically and bringing your own interpretations into it. But then you think of like ancient historians who were writing 300 years after the Battle of Sparta about the Battle of Sparta because it was passed down orally.
Yeah.
Like, that's not, what do you know?
Like the Legend of 300 was probably more like, it was like 6 guys versus like 8 guys.
The Legend of 300 was actually 200. It wasn't that many.
Yeah.
No, dude.
299.
It was probably like 7
They rounded
guys,
up.
and there was like 3 Persians that were like, hey, we want this land. And they're like, you can't have it. And then eventually, a bunch of grandkids got told stories like, yeah, we beat the shit out of like 8 million people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So tying this back in real quick.
Okay.
One thing I thought of is when you were talking about when Ben and I disagreed with you. And
vehemently.
Doesn't matter.
Well, Zoom glitched out during your whole little spiel, so we missed part of it. So even Zoom thinks you're full of shit.
We didn't even care. We just were like, he's still wrong.
Yeah, whatever. We know he's full of shit, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But talking about that, though, I'm not trying to go back and argue with you, but talking about like the perspective as a Westerner of these cults, and then like as like a non-religious person of like some of these religious practices. So one thing that we don't really do anymore is like communal, like tribal exercises. So there's like, you're talking about like in neuroscience, they've measured people doing like things like drum circles where they just sit there and everyone drums together, just like, like ancient humans would do, or even more recent. I mean, people out in fucking Venice Beach are doing that shit every night, tripping balls. But like ancient tribal cultures, they had, drum circles and they all sang together. And that was part of like the oral tradition, like Ben was talking about it. Like you had like one guy who told a story. It was all tied together as part of the culture, the religion, the music. But there was this other aspect of all of us doing it together. And it's the same thing with soldiers when they just are in drill camp and they march and they're all marching in unison. These soldiers describe the sense of something greater, something bigger than them, where they kind of become like a bee in the colony, right? Like if I die, it's okay as long as it's for the benefit of the colony. And that's what these soldiers feel. And there's like, like a neuroscientist explanation for this phenomenon that people experience. And it's something that we don't tap into anymore really that much. I mean, musicians will to some degree. And you could still get that in your everyday life, but it's what was a really important part of human culture doesn't really exist as it did in the Western world. And so that would further tie into like my argument of why someone would pursue.
Hey, Devin.
Yeah. Rajneesh Param.
Real quick. You want to see how both me and Ben lean back right there?
Mm-hmm.
Because that was so boring. Okay.
Actually, my back hurt.
Yeah. Okay. Sure, man. Devin Long Days. My back. Devin, that's your new nickname, is Devin Long Days. Because every time you start talking, we're in for a long fucking day, dude.
Well, don't ask me to talk then.
I feel like that was
Fucking
just
with you.
mean.
If you want short, concise, don't have me on here. The reason you have me on here is because you need content, Kyle.
I just wanted to have a funny conversation, dude. I know you're gonna do your fucking dissertation. God damn.
But there's
No, I get what you're saying though. I
point to it.
understand the point you were trying to make is that there is something like greater within all of those, like ritual magic has even like there have been studies about people who do ritual magic that it doesn't do anything. Like they burn sage and they drop pentagrams
what is
and stuff.
ritual magic?
It's basically just
somebody
like
that doesn't know.
yeah, it's basically just like
Asking for a friend.
If someone was to not know, how would you explain that?
No, there's like literal people who practice ritual magic just like anyone would do Buddhism or meditate, right?
Where they
like
pulling
crush the
pigeons
eye
out
of
of
a newt.
hats?
They crush the eye of a newt and
No,
they burn
not
some sage
like
or whatever. They draw a
illusionists.
pentagram.
Not like
And they
David Blaine. He's talking about like
not
Michael
illusionist,
Scott.
not illusionist, Ben. No, but like there's like something to the repetitive motion and like the structured out like line, just like a drum circle or just like any cult ritual. That is like there's huge dumps of serotonin and huge like all sorts of like different chemical balances in your brain that like you get from performing some sort of written down ritual or some sort of like communal ritual thing. So I get that aspect of joining cult, but to my earlier point,
Which one?
Those all make sense. I get what you're saying with like how someone can be drawn into it seeking for a greater meaning, but if like you and I and Ben were approached by at least 30 different cults a year and we just don't know it because we're smart enough to acknowledge that someone is trying to sell us some bullshit. And like there's people who fall into those Instagram traps where they sell shampoo for some company.
Nigerian princes.
Princes. I mean, there's all
pyramid
sorts of scams.
schemes.
Exactly.
All the time.
Dude, yeah.
All the time. I can name
casinos,
people
dude.
right now that I've heard of recently that are in part of pyramids.
Oh, hold on.
Those are all different versions of a cult, right? But you and I and Ben were all smart enough to go, this is some bullshit. I'm not going to involve myself with it.
But don't stop there. Like this is one thing that college really taught me in studying the education system is that when we see a problem in society, especially in America, we tend to be like, it's really easy to point a finger and be like, there's the problem right there. Like we see a bunch of dumb fucks around the world donating, giving all their money.
Obviously, I'm painting a little white and black, but like
no. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like take this a step further. It's like yes, the three of us are educated, but it's why isn't everybody else educated in the same way?
I'm not even saying education. I think it's common sense, dude. I mean,
but
there
some
is
people
some
aren't
internal
common sense.
Yeah, but
you learn that through schooling.
Oh, you learn that through everything, dude.
Or not even schooling. You learn that from your
experience
parents, your siblings, your friends.
Yeah, but I mean, there's also something intuitive. There's something about intuition that says, I'm not going to invest time or money into this.
Yeah.
And some people don't have that, and that's how they get tricked into being in a cult.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I think that 9 times out of 10, and that was my earlier point before it cut out, is that 9 times out of 10, people who fall into those traps, they're just missing the intuition to go, oh, this is not going to end. This is going to end poorly because they don't see the signs early.
And I think Ben and I aren't disagreeing with that point. I think, it's semantics. It's just because you were saying that they're stupid. I mean, they kind of are, but
Kyle
we wanted
found
to explore
word.
it.
Yeah.
Kyle found the word he was looking for, which is they lack the intuition. And I'm finding difficulty disagreeing with that.
Yeah.
And I
mean, that's a form of stupidity. Really, you're kind of stupid, but yeah.
Still have the dumb fuck gene.
Yeah, you're still part of the dumb fuck gene pool. But all right, another cult. Here's a good one.
Okay, well, here's a transition for you.
Okay.
Imagine having the knowledge of the capabilities of the damage of cults.
Yeah.
From personal experience. But still joining a cult because Leo Ryan, who was murdered by Jim Jones people in Jonestown, his daughter, and they say this in the documentary, his daughter gave all her money to Rajneeshpuram and joined Rajneeshpuram.
No
Oof.
way.
Yeah, that's not
The
good.
guy who got killed by Jonestown, his
Oh, he was
daughter
the
did.
senator, wasn't he?
Was
So
he a
is that-
senator? Yeah, I
He
think
was
he
like a
senator.
UN diplomat or a senator or
He was a
something.
Is
senator.
this daddy issues?
I
Yeah.
don't
Like,
know.
is this a form of her trying to feel connected to her dad?
No, but he
You
wasn't
know-
part of the cult. He was just
He
there to
wasn't.
negotiate.
He went in to stop the cult.
Yeah. And
So
then he got murdered in the process. Yeah.
when Jim Jones, that's why I figured it'd be a good like transition into a cult,
This
is
is
when Jim
perplexing.
Jones started his whole, what do you call it? People of the Temple. Is that what he called it? The People's
Ah, it
Temple,
was some
something like
stupid,
that. Something
dumb,
stupid.
made-up name, just like every cult.
Yeah, it was some bullshit using the keywords
Yeah.
to grab people. So he gets these people
Marketing.
together, and they start looking for somewhere where they can basically build a compound. I mean, similar to Rajneeshpuram, but instead of
Mhm.
going into the United States, they left the United States. They wanted to leave somewhere and go somewhere with that didn't have United States extradition, I'm pretty sure. And so they ended up in this area in South America that's was disputed territory at the time between Venezuela and Guyana. Is that how you say it? Guyana? Anyways, it's now part of Guyana, but at the time it was a disputed territory. So Jim Jones and his people, they use that to build their compound. Well, Leo Ryan comes in basically to try to shut it down. There's the people who's family members of people caught up in it. They were really concerned about obviously their daughters and their siblings or whatever that are in this compound doing culty shit, and they then got together and they got Leo Ryan on board to help him, and he went over there to try to shut it down. And then whatever happened in arguments, and he decides to leave but come back. There was some sort of confrontation with a knife that someone pulled on him, on Leo Ryan. And so he tells Jim Jones, I'm leaving, but we'll be back. Basically, we're coming after you. And it was on his way out that Jim Jones' men that were at the airport got the order and shot at the plane and killed Leo Ryan.
Jesus.
So
Christ.
Leo Ryan was just a normal ass dude. He's not
Yeah,
a cult guy.
Yeah.
But his daughter.
But
His
then
daughter ended up joining the Rajneeshs. Yeah.
well, less than 10 years later, less than
Yeah.
a decade, because that was the late 70s and Rajneeshpuram started in the mid 80s. So yeah, less than a decade. And she went and joined Rajneeshpuram.
But so I guess that brings up the amount of hurt and missing, the feeling that they're missing something in their lives must be so strong that it overrides the intuition. Because I don't think it's just that people are missing intuition or common sense. I think it's got to be that these feelings inside of them are so strong that
they're life
overpowers.
experience and events or something,
Yeah, I mean, usually it's circumstantial, but I mean, generally, a healthy and happy person doesn't need to fill their, I mean, the voids they have are filled internally with things that, they're successful at. You know what I mean? Like someone who's well-adjusted doesn't go out to the jungle to follow a guy who just wants to, sleep with your wife. And that's what most cults are. But I think that the thing is, it's the thing is if you're happy and well-adjusted, you can usually solve those problems internally, and you don't have to, third party. But for the most part, I think Devin said, is it's circumstantial, just on. I mean, a lot of the times it's timing too, right? You find someone at a real low point, I think that their intuition or their guard or that the void is going to be a little easier to. And that's the thing about cults, is they always prey on people who are in those positions of things are not going my way. You know what I mean? It's not like they find people who are happy and healthy and hey, we got a real fun social club where I bang your wife and then you give me all your money. That's not
and
usually
you have
how
to be
it works.
celibate.
Yeah, it's you have to be celibate. I bang your wife and you give me all your money. Usually people are get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
But then, if you see someone who's drunk at a bar and it's looks like he's super depressed, and I think usually 9 times out of 10 they're targeting people who are on the end of the rope.
Yeah.
I guess my point would be that even the most put together people could be in
Yes.
a vulnerable position.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
all
Right?
struggle.
Yeah, we all have moments. I mean, again goes back to the doctors and lawyers that I alluded to at the beginning for Rajneesh Param, is they were having basically a midlife crisis, and that's really, really common in people because you work towards something, you achieve it, and you're like, when you get there, you're like, wait, didn't bring me unlimited happiness. Now what do I do? Right? And we talked about it last time, Kyle. We were talking about the rich people, or talking about the elite and how they work their way up, and you're like, what do I do with my hands? That's what do I do? And then they decide to start evil, dark, demented sex shit, right? And like human trafficking, right? Like they have nowhere else to go, so they just create some crazy shit to do. And I feel like this ties in, is you get to somewhere, and then now what?
Well, okay, so I mean, here's an interesting thing, because like, so there are all different types of cults. I think that the word cult is not broad enough to describe what that sensation is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you think about a guy like, like Rush Limbaugh, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Rush Limbaugh listeners, he has built his own microcosm version of a cult, basically.
So you're taking religion out of the conversation.
This is not religion, right? This is
I completely agree with you.
Yeah, this is the sensation of listening to someone who is charismatic, charming to an extent. I mean, Rush Limbaugh kind of sucks dick, but he's a good broadcaster. He's a good orator, right?
Until you listen to what he's saying.
Yeah, people live and die on his word. Because I mean, so the thing is, like, if you take religion, even just the religious aspect out of it, like ideologies like left versus right, or ultra liberal, ultra conservative, like those are all microcosms of the cult, because it's like, people who are those like MAGA, like Kekistan frog, those like trolls on Reddit that are super pro Trump. Those guys aren't living happy, healthy lives. They don't leave the gym to go get on Reddit. You know what I mean? They're like,
it's the same with the ultra far left ones.
Yeah,
like I know a few. I grew up with them, and their posts on Facebook and Instagram for years were just mad depressing. And now they're like fighting for all of these rights and stuff. And it's like, no, like it's thinly veiled depression so much of the time,
dude.
And they're just taking out their anger on other things.
Yeah, it's like, and it's like a channeling. It's almost like like cults, I like ideologies, things like that. It's just a channeling. It's like a focusing all your energy into something that is shitty other than yourself, right? Instead of like looking internally and be like, oh fuck, I'm kind of shitty, I need to change some things about myself. It's like taking all that energy and verting it, like sending it to something else, and then putting all of your time and effort into something that is outside
putting the blame
yourself.
on something else.
Yeah, you're putting the blame, or even you're just putting yourself out. Basically, you're removing your free will and the issues of your own. Like, you're taking the onus off yourself. You're like giving all of the will and power to someone else. So you're like, it's like not my fault. I'm not shitty because I'm just a piece of shit. It's like, it's this person can either help me, or like all of these things are shitty because for someone else's reasons, right? So it's just like channeling all your time and effort into something, like whether you're like, oh, Scientology seems really cool, I want to be an actor, and then they make you scrub toilets with toothbrushes. You give all your energy to that, and then when it doesn't work out, you're like, fucking Scientology.
So it's a frat.
Yeah, it's like, it's like, I'm not a loser, Scientology sucked, right? But it's like, no, I mean, it's just people who just don't want to take responsibility for their own shitty actions or behaviors. Like, I feel like a lot of the time. I mean, sometimes.
I think sometimes, though, it's kind of like almost the opposite happens too, where things kind of suck, and so people channel themselves into something that's not shitty. Like, instead of attacking something that's shitty, they channel themselves into something that's good. Like, okay, my life fucking sucks, but I can go to church, as like a religious example.
Yeah.
Yep. I can find hope.
I can find hope.
Like,
or there's non-religious ones. Like, I've had, the thing that I'm thinking about is that we each have our own religion, basically.
Yeah, for me, it's Joe Rogan.
Exactly. So Kyle's really just one man, and it's really
One man who
everything
eats
he
meat
says and
for
does,
30
I
days
will do. You
straight
hear this, Joe?
and says it's good.
Joe, if you're listening, I will eat only meat for 6 months if I can be on your podcast.
So there's Kyle. It's really pathetic. There's people like him. There's a lot of them, actually. There's a whole group.
There's about 8.5 million of us.
They have support groups. But I mean, you can think about yourself though. It's like for me, I have like for me, music is kind of to a point where it's kind of a religion, where I think that it's like music as a concept can cure all for me. Like if I'm upset, I can play music or listen to music, and boom, I'm good. Like I kind of have like invested myself in this concept to the point of where it's kind of a religion. And same goes for maybe like for me, like pursuit of knowledge or discourse. Like, knowledge can solve all things. Well, it actually can't. I mean, there's plenty of fucking smart people that know all kinds of stuff all over the world.
Have 6 degrees and they're still depressed.
Yeah, they're still depressed, and they can't solve the world's problem. But I think I kind of have put like this religious hope into the pursuit of knowledge. So I think everybody has something like that.
So I think what we need to do right now is backstep a little bit and clarify. So if we're knocking religion out of the definition of cult, then I think we need. Kyle and I had a conversation. What was it, like 2 weeks ago, about John Oliver?
Yeah.
I think this changes the definition of what we were talking about. I think we should split it between religious cults and just cults, because when we're talking about religious cults and we're talking about how we feel like there's a lack of intuition in somebody, or they're just going through a really hard time to fall into that. I think falling into something like even QAnon, falling into
that's its own
like
version,
just believing in Trump, believing in what's the guy with InfoWars? Alex Jones, like all that kind of stuff. Or for me, who's a little bit more left middle leaning, like John Oliver, like, for me, who's worked in the media, who knows how things work in there. Like you don't get these directives from the top all the time. That's like, oh, you have to publish this. This isn't true, but you have to say it. That's not how shit works. But we still follow talking heads.
Yeah.
Religiously, and we take everything that they say to heart, even though Siri popped up. Even though they
she's got something to say.
Yeah, they're like all scripted.
Join the cult band.
So I think it's just something that we need to consider, is like when we're not talking about religious cults, we're talking about conspiracy theories or just public figures. It's so much. She thought I was saying Siri every time I'm saying conspiracy theory. It's so much easier to fall into those traps and just start listening to those people because they're relatable to you.
Yeah.
And I feel like it changes the definition. And I think we need to acknowledge that before we go forward.
Here's what I think, Ben. I think you're right that like you have your one section of Alex Jones, QAnon, John Oliver fans, right? They all kind of fall into following a figurehead that has.
Imagine John Oliver fans getting lumped in with Alex Jones fans.
They kind of same, dude. Same with Bill Maher fans, dude. They're on the,
some people
on the
are
other
fighting,
side of the spectrum.
Some people are fighting to disavow or to say that Sandy Hook didn't exist, and other people are like, hey, we should get rid of guns.
Yeah. Basically the same group of people, just different ideas. No, but like you have those people, those ideologues or those figureheads, and you have religions, right? And then right in the middle, that's what a cult is, right? It incorporates religion, and then it incorporates a charismatic figurehead. So
when Ben's talking about making a distinction between religious cults and non-religious cults, and my point was to kind of, instead of make a distinction, broaden the net of, it's not religion or cults necessarily. It's just something that, like, it's just us trying to seek something as humans. Yeah, trying to seek
connection.
Something. So there,
that's what it is.
That distinction, but it's just how that desire for some sort of connection to something or someone or groups of people will push you into something like, for me, music. For Kyle, Joe Rogan, and for other people, it's letting guys bang their wives or whatever cult that one is.
That's all of them, dude. I don't know if you know this, but that's all of them. They all somehow end up that guy bangs your wife.
If you're going to start
somehow
a cult,
it's also medieval England with the king, but
yeah, somehow. Yeah. If my point is, if you're going to start a cult, you might as well get laid doing it, right?
Dude, that's the whole reason people start cults, is to get pussy.
Yeah.
That's the only reason.
That's really the only reason anybody does anything, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you guys.
We just cracked
Dude,
it right
you're-
open. Well, shut the fuck up,
Ben,
Ben.
you're out of your mind. Every single cult
Sorry,
is all.
I'm out of my element. I'm sorry.
Dude, every single cult is just about busting nuts at the end of the day. Like that's their bottom line. That's why they're all started.
My favorite scene from Waco is when David is talking with the other David Tabibs or whatever his name was, and they're sitting on the roof, and he goes, "Look, I want you to stay here, but you got to agree to be celibate." And then he looks down and he sees his future wife, and he's like, "Fuck, man, I don't know if I can do this."
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
there's some truth to the fact that like you do stuff to get laid, and
Yeah.
cults are no exception.
No, dude. I mean, it's basically like some guys wear Ed Hardy t-shirts and wear gold chains and too much cologne, and then some guys wear a white bathrobe and talk about consciousness. Like it's all the same thing, dude.
Just some
Yeah.
sort of weird magic illusion trick that they're doing just to
Yeah.
get. Yeah.
Dude, every guy is just a shape-shifting fucking
Yeah, do whatever it takes.
creature that is just like, how do I get pussy? And they're just trying to form into whatever's gonna work, dude.
And if it takes giving this guy all my money
Yeah, sometimes
so
that's
he
how
could
it
buy
is.
Rolls Royce, hey man, have at it as long as I'm getting laid.
Yeah, dude, that that's basically it, dude. Like there's so many like weird instances of like, you know, like Christmas, for instance, right? Christmas is based around a Germanic fertility cult pre-Roman Empire. Did you know this?
Oh, like the pagan version
Like
of Christmas.
it was a pagan. Well,
Before
so-
Christianity got dumped on top of it and pushed
Yeah.
it out.
well, okay, but like a lot of the traditions,
Like it
and
happens
rituals-
to everything.
You're talking about like Christmas.
Yeah, no, but like a lot of the like rituals and like even symbolicism of Christmas is all like stemmed from this Germanic pagan fertility.
Like Christmas
cult.
trees and
Christmas trees.
lights and
Dude, they worshipped like this pagan cult worshipped like these psilocybin mushrooms that would grow underneath like fir trees in Germany, right? And they're like these white stemmed with a big red cap, so it looks like Santa Claus. It looks like a little present under a tree. They like sprout on kind of mid or late December. So like there's so many weird things. And then like when Rome conquered all of Germany, and then like they were just like, all right, we're not going to like kill off all of their pagan religions. So they adopted some of it, and it just eventually just became the norm for like 50% of the world.
well to stamp out their paganism, they took their Christian holiday and dumped it right on top.
Yeah, they
And
just
then,
incorporated it
Like,
into their
oh yeah,
shit.
Christmas trees, that's for Jesus. And they're like,
Yeah.
what? Yep. It's
Well,
all
I think
Jesus. Move on.
This
Don't look.
this leads us into the war on Christmas and how funny it is because it's already derived so much before it even gets to the consumerism stage that we've seen
Yeah.
since like 1950s
Yeah.
America. And then you bring in other holidays like Hanukkah, and what I'm going to guess is going to happen to Kwanzaa in another 20 or 30 years, how consumerized that's going to get.
Yeah.
But when we talk about Hanukkah, like that's about like death and destruction. Like there's no happiness there. There's like no
That's
feel
a lot
good
of
story. None of it has to do with going to the mall and giving 8 days of presents.
Yeah,
Like,
but that
it's-
doesn't sell. Death and
exactly.
destruction doesn't sell shit.
Suffering doesn't sell, Ben.
And that's what I love about the war on Christmas is like you're not celebrating Jesus's birthday. You're celebrating, lining up at the mall, spending all your money once a year on family and friends. Like just do that and make your family and friends happy. But you got to learn the history and understand that.
Well,
that's
first of all,
not
anyone
celebrating.
who says war on Christmas, they just work for Fox News, so they suck anyways, dude. There's no real people being like the war on Christmas.
Yeah,
dude,
it's a fair point.
It's just so weird though. You're right. Like it's like people take this thing really seriously, but really it's just an amalgamation of a bunch of weird, dirty German people that used to fuck in the woods that the Romans just adopted, and now everyone's like, "Hey, man, you got to say Happy Holidays."
Yeah.
There's a dude outside the store ringing the fucking bell,
Yeah,
Yeah.
dressed up as a
Dude, it's-
mushroom. He thinks he's
dressed up as a psychedelic mushroom.
Dressed up as a fucking mushroom. Dude, I hate
Also
those bells.
in
I hate
Oregon.
those fucking bells.
Yeah,
So annoying.
It reminds me of the Game of Thrones shame bells.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
I'll give you the change in my pocket. Just stop ringing that goddamn bell. I'll give you
give them,
$20.
you're encouraging them, dude. You can't do that.
I'll give you
It's for
money.
charity, Ben.
Fuck the kids.
I just it's so high pitched. That's just,
yeah.
I'll give you my
It's
shit.
garbage.
I'll give you $20 if you stop ringing that stupid thing.
But he's not going to stop. So why are you giving him money?
Yeah.
I'm not. I actually don't give him money. I'm just saying if he did, I would.
Yeah.
Where
If
does
you
that
had
money go?
to give.
Where does that money really go, you think?
Salvation Army?
Yeah.
Oh,
I have no
Salvation
idea.
Army is I just learned this. Fuck, they're like they give their money to like super far right leaning organizations.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's great.
I
Okay.
It's
think
like the
the
Red Cross is like 90% of their money is generated goes to administration costs. Like the CEO
PETA's
makes
the
like
big
20
one.
Yeah,
I
PETA,
took
their
yeah.
CEO makes like $20 million. You're like,
Well, you know how many animals they kill a year? Like they
Yeah.
run kill shelters. They kill thousands of animals every single year. Like PETA is not a good organization
Wait,
by any
is that because they like rescue them and then they have nothing to do with them and then they don't have to
they
kill
just
them
put them
anyway?
down.
So they
Yeah.
just end up doing what they're trying to stop other people from doing.
Yeah, but they hide it. They like skew numbers. Like PETA is look into PETA. Like anybody listening, like look into this terrible, terrible organization. They do almost no good for the world, and they
Wait.
take all your money.
Ben, I'm getting a call. Oh my God. So I got a call from Alex. Well, I got a text from Alex Jones. He wants me to read it out loud.
Okay.
Okay. So this is what he said. He said, I'm going to read it in his voice just because that's what it says to do. It's weird. I don't know. He's a weird guy. So he says that, okay. PETA is short for their actual pagan name, which is pedophile. PETA is run by a children's sex cult. And they take the kids and they take the animals and they suck their energy and then they transfer it into a giant children's sex cult. Dude, I don't know what Alex is talking about, but I guess, yeah, PETA is actually short for pedophile. And I guess they don't kill animals, they fuck kids.
Kyle, after the last time I did an episode with you, you informed me that you didn't want to talk about Alex Jones anymore because you thought you were talking about him too much.
I can't stop.
Again.
I can't stop.
Kyle goes, I got to stop talking about Alex Jones. People are going to start thinking I'm a fan.
I heard on the pod. I actually, Cal and I were talking about this too. And I asked him, why do you watch so many Alex Jones videos? And he said,
I don't watch that many, dude.
But
I'm just
Kyle,
like,
you realize that by watching any, it's like me going on Facebook and watching a Ben Shapiro video. Like that's another view.
Dude, I'll watch some of those
money
too.
In his pocket. Don't.
No, I don't. I
Yeah.
mean,
I disagree with that, Ben. And it's not, you're not wrong that if you give them a hit that, like a view or whatever, I'm not liking the videos or whatever, but if I go and someone like Ben Shapiro, if I go and I watch a video of someone I disagree with, yes, the money's going to someone I disagree with, but we can't continue to live in this world where we only do the things that we agree with and we avoid everything else. So I've watched Ben Shapiro videos.
And I
Alex Jones, you can't get anything from that. But I've watched Ben Shapiro.
You get a lot of entertainment, dude.
Oh, it's fucking funny. But Ben Shapiro, I've listened to him talk about his views on like gay marriage, which I totally disagree with his stance. But then I listened to him and I learned a lot about people who hold that view. So I do agree that it sucks to give him money.
Yeah.
Because you know what I mean? Like I don't want him to have money for some of the shit he's saying. But also the stuff that I'm watching, I'm trying to get like some insight. So yeah, I think we need to stop living in our ideological bubbles, which is what cults are. It all ties back in.
And I agree. And that's something that I do personally as well. And I like to have those, like I've got a few friends who are like staunch, hardcore conservatives, and we'll have really great discussions where I don't agree with anything they say. They don't agree with anything I say. But I come out of it understanding that we live in a country of almost 400 million people. And it is widely divided and we have widely different views. And it's not just divided in half. It's divided in so many little pieces as people grow up in their own bubbles. Like I grew up in Silicon Valley. You guys grew up in Coos Bay. Our lived experiences are so different than people that grew up on the East Coast. Like we are a very diverse group of people.
It's a really big
and like you said, the only way to understand is to have those conversations, to understand where people are getting their information from. And that's the only way we can understand each other and try to move forward.
And a lot of times you'll end up actually finding common ground.
Yes.
With someone who has a completely different like end view, but you actually will have a common ground on that view that like you actually stem from, your different conclusions stem from a very similar place.
Yes.
Well, also, Ben, I mean, first of all, I don't want you to get the wrong idea. I don't watch Alex Jones videos. You can't even watch him on YouTube because he's been kicked off. So he
All right,
doesn't
release
get any
your
money
search
from it.
history. Let's see your search history.
Okay, to be fair,
Let's see the
wait a
tax
second.
returns.
Wait a second.
What's your taxes? and
Before
your
you get
social
crazy,
security?
I did watch an Alex Jones video last night, but let me okay, it was a remix where it was like a musical remix where he's saying "Turn the Frogs Gay" and they made it into a song. So
Is it the folk song one?
No, it's like a techno
The
version.
folk song one.
The folk
is
song
pretty
one's
good.
great. The folk song
I
one's
like
great.
that one. Yeah. Okay. It's okay, Kyle. We forgive you and your Alex Jones cult.
I don't,
that you
dude. I don't even,
subscribe
I
to.
just can't. I just think he's interesting. I don't
Oh,
like.
it is
Everybody
absolutely
listening,
interesting.
there is a picture. If you're not watching the YouTube version, there's a picture of Alex Jones right behind Kyle.
It's actually tattooed on his back.
He's got on his ass tattooed.
Yeah,
they're
it
putting
says, "I
shit in
love
the
you,
water
Alex,"
that turns to
with his
frogs.
face on it. I got a giant Steve-O sized
With the thumbs up.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Anyways,
Ideological bubbles apply to cults, though.
Yes.
It
that's
ties
what they
in.
are, dude. Yeah.
It ties in. We
Yeah.
came full circle with that one. It's an ideological bubble, and that when you are in it, you don't realize you're in it. And the same with our ideological bubbles of liberalism and conservatism in our country right now is you don't realize that you're in a bubble and that you're having these confirmation bias processes happening in your brain.
Yeah.
Well, it's so weird because like you see it happen. I mean, I know people from Coos Bay. I don't know if you've seen this at all, Devin, but like young moms that we went to high school with are like all anti-vaxxer now, which is
Oh,
I
Really?
mean,
Yeah.
I don't even know how that happens to someone. Like, I don't even know how you get introduced to something like that, but it's because you're being influenced by ideologues
Mhm.
with insane points of view that just like something with it resonates with you. And then you attach all your, like, you put a bunch of stock into whatever someone's saying
Yeah.
that vaccines don't work, which is fucking insane. But like tons of people do that. And like people that I know that we went to school with are like, vaccines, well, they'll make your rectum fall out. I don't know, some crazy like notion that has
It's
no
true.
actual
That's
base.
that's what happens when you take medical advice
Yeah,
from a woman
Facebook.
well, no, I was just saying a woman who does Playboy spreads, and now she's giving medical advice because McCarthy's book is what popularized a lot of those beliefs.
Well, it's like the pandemic. What's going on right now? Like one of the biggest hoaxes of this entire thing is the pandemic, and it's an ousted medical professional who stole documents, has zero credibility, couldn't do any research that was empirical in her entire career, and now she's making some video that millions of people are watching and believing.
Yeah, and putting a ton of stock in. Okay, so
saying that she was an insider.
Yeah, well, so here's what's interesting, Ben, because this is going to tie back into the cult that I wanted to talk about. So, like, people with either little to no credibility that have some sort of inside track into something, and then manipulating that into a narrative that fits their needs, right? So there was woman, there's a Russian woman who lived in London in like 1902, right? And she was a psychic, an author, an orator. And she was the author of the original Lost City of Atlantis. Like she wrote the like anthology of what happened to Atlantis, right? And this is hilarious because Goebbels took her, the SS president, Joseph Goebbels. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
He was like the head of
he was the head of the SS
propaganda.
He was the head of the SS and propaganda, and Hitler's
minister of propaganda.
Some stupid bullshit like that. But he loved her book as a child, right? And he took a ton of stock into it, and he was very into the occult. So she, turns out, was a paranoid schizophrenic who had a vision that a former Atlantean came to her in a dream and told her all this story. She wrote it down, and then that was the book, right? So Goebbels reads this book, and obviously, like, they didn't do a lot of fact checking, and he's like, "Oh shit, the lost city of Atlantis. So then he talks to Nine Fuhrer and says, hey, you know what? In order to beat the Allies, we got to get some mystical weapons on our side. So he hires another occult leader. Like he was an occult expert, right? He buys a castle in Western Germany and spends over like $50 million on the SS secret program to, 1, find the Holy Grail, 2, find the Spear of Destiny, and this is the best part, dude. And 3, find the hole in Antarctica that leads to the Giant Land. Dude, they spent $30 million on an expedition to Antarctica to find the land of the giants. And that was all because this one lady who was a paranoid schizophrenic, like historically, wrote a book one time, and he was like, oh, that's a pretty good book. I think we're going to put a lot of energy into this.
It's a classic
one of those soldiers.
L. Ron Hubbard situation.
Yeah, right. Can you,
write something,
can you imagine?
and you read it,
dude. Yeah, could you
take it to full stock?
Dude, the thing is, like, what's hilarious is that there was an openly gay German archaeologist who is believed to be the basis of Indiana Jones. Right? He was like this kind of badass, like adventuring archaeologist who was.
Are you telling me Indiana Jones is gay?
Well, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guy gets a lot of babes for being gay, but.
Well, why do you think he always has his shirt buttoned down that much?
He's showing like a little bit of
it's a fashion thing, yeah.
And that's what the whip's for.
Yeah, the whip was originally used on at
all tied back into Twitter necessities.
Somehow we'll always end up on hardcore gay shit. I don't know. Dude, but it's so funny because like, so he wasn't like, he definitely was not pro Nazi party, but he was like, he was super also into like this occult archaeology. So he convinced Goebbels to give him all this money to find the Holy Grail. And dude, they gave him like something like 50 German soldiers to help him on his quest for the Holy Grail. That's like that was a huge reason on the initial invasion into France, is that they believed it was in France, hidden by some Templar knights.
Wait, I did not know that.
Yeah, dude. They thought it was so. Yeah. Yes, Devin, I'm telling you, a bunch of Germans got high on meth and read some cult books, and then they did the worst atrocities in human history.
So now, crazy. Seriously though, imagine being one of those soldiers in a failing Nazi empire, and all you have to do is go find the Holy Grail. What a cozy, comfy fucking military job that is.
Yeah, but they're going through occupied territory, dude.
Okay, no, France wasn't occupied territory.
They deoccupied it pretty quick.
Exactly. So imagine, they just probably got fucking drunk the entire time.
Yeah, they're like,
had a great time. Because they're like, there's no fucking Holy Grail.
Goebbels calls him, hey, have you guys found the Grail? Hey, Goebbels. Yeah, we're totally like looking for the Grail. Like, it's a super hard thing to find.
It's close.
Like, don't come down and visit, man. Like, no, we are really looking very hard, but also it might be at the beach. We might be at the beach on Sunday to find the Grail. But like, don't
Turns
come
out
visit.
They're actually in Oregon at some cult.
Dude, it's honestly, it's the best post-war situation where when the Allies are like, get you as like a Nazi and like, what war crimes did you commit? Like, man, I was just looking for the Holy Grail.
I think they probably got shot on sight. They're like, fuck out of here.
Yeah. I didn't kill any Jews. I had nothing to do with that. I was looking for a little cup for Joseph Goebbels.
Eternal life.
What's even funnier, though, guys, if you think about this, is that there were – so, like, Goebbels believed that, like, Christianity was not an Aryan religion, right? Because technically, like, there were, like, pagan religions that predated Christianity in like kind of the Aryan era, which first of all, Aryan people, that's not even a real thing. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah,
that is like, it's not a real ethnicity. It's a made up ethnicity. But so he didn't believe that Christianity was like a German or should be a German religion. And like the idea was that eventually the Third Reich would pivot into this occult German religion that believed that Aryans were descendants of ice giants. So
where do you think they get their blue eyes from? Come on.
Yeah.
Logic.
No, but that was like their whole thing. They believed that Aryans were descendants of flying ice giants who lived in the hollow earth. And that's why they went to Antarctica to find the entrance. This is all well documented. And also, it's the fucking most insane. Dude, that's the level of involvement that Goebbels had in cult affairs. He was so deep that he was willing to basically, I mean,
So 6 million of my people were
Yeah.
killed because they weren't descendants of ice giants.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and fuck you for not being descendant of ice giant. Honestly,
My bad. My bad. We're just
isn't that
we're just the
nuts,
children
though?
of God. Sorry.
No,
yeah, but not
but
the ice giants, dude.
you're not
That's
the
the
ice
one true God.
giants.
It's the
Ice giants
The
beats
true gods.
all.
Dude, it's
Ice
so
giant
nuts.
smash.
Dude, that's like the level of involvement that I don't think this is documented enough. Like how deep the Nazis were into cult stuff.
Oh
And
yeah,
how insane! Like they were just like taking barbiturates and being like, yes, the ice giants. Yes, we're going to find the ice giants." And then they take another Quaalude and then smoke a meth and then like.
Okay. Back up though. Tie this back into Vikings though, and how
Yeah.
they would do shrooms and basically early stages of meth.
Yeah.
All the fucking time, and their gods being so similar to ice giants.
Mm-hmm. No, but that was the thing though. Is
they're
that,
all
like,
just having a universal trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, dude, the thing is like
Moral of the story: don't do shrooms.
that was what Goebbels' whole cult ideology like was, is that like these Norse myths were like the one true Aryan religion, like basically, and that's what they wanted to pivot to. But you know,
I mean, we all knew it was based on nonsense because it's obviously bullshit. But when you
Yeah.
start thinking about where the
dude,
inception,
the level of bullshit is
the
insane.
genesis of the nonsense is absurd. It's absolutely
Yeah.
absurd.
Dude, it's unfathomable. It's another one of those things that, like, people lack it. You think about, like, if Goebbels had any sense of intuition to be like, maybe some of this is bullshit, and like maybe like I shouldn't put so much stock into this. You think like that might have had some effect? Like I feel like it would have. Like maybe he would have been like, okay, maybe we
Yeah.
need to change our positions and stances on some of this shit.
But it's like Obamagate. Like half this country is up in the arms about Obamagate right now. And if you
What
guys
is it?
don't know,
I don't even.
you
I
don't even know what it is.
anything.
Okay, so before
I don't watch
Trump-
Fox News.
you don't need to, you can watch
Just
anything.
kidding.
Trump is complaining that Obama set up like a sting information and asked for the uncovery of individuals tied to Russian interference with the election before the election happened because they saw it coming. So people in the Obama administration filed lawful legal requests that are filed thousands of times each year by every single presidential administration. And they uncovered the names of people like Michael Flynn and all that kind of stuff and requested information about them and what's going on because there's Russian interference in the election. And right now, Trump is calling this illegal, saying that they were setting up a sting operation into the Trump campaign. And in essence, he's doing it because if he stirs up enough legal drama about it and the court's just like, this is completely legal, then it kind of exonerates Trump from any wrongdoings that he'll be doing in his presidency, is what it essentially does. It just says that the president during their term can't be prosecuted for things that are part of their normal duties. So if Trump does something, he can't be prosecuted for it. And that's essentially what he's trying to do.
So
half this country is up in arms saying that Obama did something illegal and tried to shut down the Trump administration, which honestly probably happened because anybody with a brain that saw Trump coming was like, this guy is not fit.
So what you're saying is that when they go in and basically they say the Obama administration didn't do anything wrong, what you're saying is that then that sets a precedent for Trump's administration?
Yes.
To getting away with shit?
Yes.
That's the connection you're getting.
And he's and at the same time, so he's, I think in the past like 3 months, he's like fired like 4 inspector generals. So he's getting rid of like all of the watchdogs that were set in place after Watergate, after the whole Nixon shit that went down, so that there's no oversight over him, over anything that he does. He can't be prosecuted. He's already been impeached once and that failed. So, you know, he's setting himself up really for immunity for anything.
Yeah, I mean,
that's scary, but
it's scary. But you think about like I think he should have been prosecuted for war crimes for what happened in Syria and just like the level of destruction that the U.S. was involved there with. But like, I mean, every single president in U.S. history has some involvement in some sort of genocide.
Even JFK.
I mean, like, dude, Andrew Jackson, every single like Andrew Jackson was responsible for the death of millions of Native Americans, like,
Mhm.
and like I think every single U.S. president in history, even Obama, they droned people indiscriminately a huge portion of the time.
He did terrible,
Yeah.
terrible. Like those whole border camps were started under the Obama and Bush
Yeah.
administrations.
Yeah, and I mean, the reality is, like, I think that, like, it's such a weird job to have in the first place, right? Like, it's a
Yeah.
popularity contest for the leader of the free world, and obviously now we know that it's kind of a flawed system because you can produce a game show or a reality TV show and still be elected, but you still have. It's not like you're a producer who also is a president. Like, you're still the president. You have all the power of the free world and, like, unlimited resources basically of the United States government, and you don't need an experience, which is insane.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy to think that, like, a guy like Trump can just, like, he you're right, he's negating a ton of the oversight that is supposed to,
Yeah.
like, to manage his just off the handle
And
shit, but, like,
no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, like if you're a huge Trump supporter, that's fine. Like
Yeah.
all the power to you, but you should not be okay with rolling back federal watchdogs
Mhm.
because after Trump's gone, he's not going to be your president forever.
Yeah.
And if we roll that back, that's not good for America.
it's not good for anyone, dude.
Every single president has, like, kind of pushed the envelope a little bit more of what they can get away with.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Trump is just the most contemporary example, and maybe most dramatic. I mean, I'm no
I would say
political
most dramatic.
theorist, but and what I've seen, it seems like some of the most dramatic. But he's not the first one. The only reason he was able to do the things that he did was because the administrations before him tried to get away with shit,
Yep.
and they pushed the envelope of what they could get away with. So
Yeah.
it's not a partisan issue.
Yeah.
It's the government versus our rights. Like, how far are we
Yeah.
going to let the government go? And it's not Trump or Obama, left or right. It's the government, whoever's there at that moment. How far are we going to let them control our freedoms in our world?
Dude, eventually in like 30 years, it's literally just gonna be Emperor Palpatine. And he's just gonna be
No,
sitting maniacally in a
seriously
chair,
though.
like, ha, 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 ha. You know what I mean?
But that's
Yeah.
what I'm wondering. Like, at what point is this a failing civilization? Like, imagine the people of Rome as Rome started to fall. Like,
Dude, they
think
didn't
of
care.
it
They
this
were
way.
just sucking and fucking and eating grapes, dude. They were
Not all of them, because a lot of them, the majority of them lived in poverty, just
Yeah.
like we have here. I mean, there was a massive wealth gap in ancient Rome, and that's what we have now. So, like, at what point are we actually seeing the end of the United States as we know it? And could this literally be a different country in 20, 40
It will be.
years?
It will be. I mean, undoubtedly, it'll be drastically different in the next millennia. It's just
Yeah.
that's just the evolution of all things. Like we were talking about earlier, culture, social norms, language. They're gonna evolve, and I think most likely what we've seen is probably not for the better.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it's just a reality.
Yeah, I'll say, like, two things on that. On one hand, you have countries and governments don't usually last this long. Right? Think
Yeah.
about how many, like, there's a huge list of governments that have risen and fallen within
Even
the
England with the monarchy has changed so much.
and just within the time span of the life of the United States as a country.
Yeah.
And our inequality gap is huge right now. Like, you're talking about the amount of poverty we have. And so our average income or our average GDP is very high, but you have these super wealthy people, and then you have a lot of poor people. The other thing I will say, though, is there's kind of a psychological phenomenon that everybody thinks that they're in the end times, no matter what point in history they are in.
Yeah, that's true.
Really?
Like, the Aztecs are sacrificing people because they think the sun's going to go away. And
Y2K.
when they stop sacrificing people,
Y2K, yeah.
yeah, Y2K is a good example.
All those cults what's that cult where they cut their balls off and wore Nikes?
What?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking
Eunuchs wearing Nikes?
Well, so no, it was God, what was it called? There was a cult.
They called themselves the Unikes.
No, there was a cult, and they wore matching Nikes. They all had like the same Nike shoes on, and they all castrated themselves
Sounds
in
like a
like
social club gone
an
wrong.
effort to keep a meteor from hitting the Earth, which
Well, it
never
must
hit the
have
Earth. It
worked.
wasn't. Well, I guess it did work. They saved us, dude. I was talking to I don't know who I was talking about this, but like think about like all the people who have done those horrible things in order to prevent doomsday, right, or Armageddon, and then it works, but then no one knows because no one was aware that the Earth was going to end. So they cut their dick and balls off. And they're like, "We saved the Earth," and everyone's like, "Look at these fucking idiots cut their
weirdos.
dicks and balls off."
That's so funny.
They saved us all, and we're making fun of them.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
also, thank you for not reproducing.
Yeah, that was
Well,
probably
I
what
can't.
really saved us.
Yeah.
Not an option, dude.
Well, hey, they could have frozen them before they cut
Oh
'em.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where the Alex Jones followers are coming from.
So
Frozen sperm.
you guys brought up something earlier that made me think of a TikTok I watched yesterday, and it was this girl who didn't tell her friends and family that she was going down to somewhere in South America. Where do they do ayahuasca? What?
It's in
Peru.
the Amazon,
Peru. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she went there and did ayahuasca, and I guess had a psychotic break in the middle of doing ayahuasca. Do your
Isn't
research.
that the point?
Yeah, do your research before you do ayahuasca is the moral of the story. But I guess while she was having her psychotic break, she had like a dream that she was pregnant and gave birth to a child named Isabella, and got back home, and her ex-boyfriend was her emergency contact, who they called from Peru, because I guess when you do ayahuasca, you give them an emergency contact, which is
Makes
a
sense.
lot more organized than I thought it would be.
No, they
But-
do this shit. They like bring people in and take them up river.
Yeah.
Dang.
So she gets back, and I guess her and her boyfriend end up having a baby, and she names the baby Isabella. And at what point is that the ayahuasca? And at what point is that the psychotic break? Or is this just like she was saying, like, oh, like I had this dream that it would happen. But in my mind, I'm like, you had the dream and then you just
You made it
followed
happen.
through with
Yeah.
That just
Yeah.
sounds like a really, really uninformed DMT trip. But that sounds like to me is
the difference
someone.
is DMT is 15 minutes.
Well, yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
ayahuasca is
But
like 6 hours, dude. That's
it's
no
a
fun.
similar substance.
Yeah.
But basically, a really ill-informed pursuit into ayahuasca of this person just goes like if I mean, I can't speak to her experience, but if you go in there and you have a trip where you have a baby named Isabella, then you're like, that was me tripping because I was on fucking drugs.
Yeah.
And then if I go back and I have a kid and I name it Isabella, that's just me, like you're saying, like that's just you following the trip. And it's just, if she's at all making some sort of connection between what happened in the trip as like a predictor of her life,
And that's what she was doing. Yes.
it's just an ill-informed ayahuasca trip, because if you take ayahuasca, it will change your life. And so the things that you experience during that ayahuasca trip will have an effect on your future, but it's because your brain has been changed. The way you look at the world's been changed forever.
Well, it literally changes the chemical
Yeah, it changes
balance in your
yeah.
brain. And that's why I'd recommend before you do ayahuasca, just go to therapy. You'll spend about the same amount of money over a certain period of time.
Or do a lot of
Yeah,
research.
or you could do it all in 6 hours with a sick psychedelic trip, dude. Yeah. Yeah,
I think you
it's
just gotta do your research. That's what I think. Because I personally am super interested by like the cultural, like the cultural, what's the term? Like passing it down, cultural tradition. That's a hard word, big one. Cultural tradition.
Big
of-
7 letters.
I know. The cultural tradition of ayahuasca and like the Amazon and its effects on people. And I don't know. I find the thing super interesting. And so, yeah, maybe it's a good idea to do some research though on
Should we do some? Should we go
do
get
some
some? Do some?
ayahuasca. As
Yeah,
long as
do
we
a
do our
podcast.
research before.
Hey, I'm coming
Can't
down
do
this
a
weekend, Devin.
podcast.
Should I get some?
It won't
you
work
can't
out
just
if one
get
of us has a
ayahuasca.
dream
I
that we
can
have a
get some,
baby
dude. I know
named
a guy.
Isabella.
I know. Ayahuasca.
If
guy.
I'm gonna do ayahuasca, it's not in some fucking trap house basement buying it from a drug dealer. If I'm gonna do ayahuasca,
No, it's going to be in the Peruvian
I'm gonna go to the Peruvian
rainforest.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to that drug dealer.
Well,
and
hey,
their
why don't
version
we
of
just
a
take some
trap house.
Adderall and try and make a baby?
That was
Dude.
college.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we've passed that point in our life.
We did that for 4 years, Kyle.
We are grown
some of
up
us,
now.
You graduated in 3.
Yeah, and I'm the stupidest one here. So what does that say, guys? You didn't work
Hey,
hard enough.
we all almost failed statistics.
Dude, I was just thinking about that when Kyle texted me.
About Dev?
Oh yeah, well it's that class. So Kyle
Yeah.
texted me about, hey, Ben's gonna join us. I was like, yeah, cool. And then I was sitting there thinking, I was like, he's probably going to laugh his ass off and people are going to hear Ben Green's laugh, which I want Ben Green's laugh to be shared with the world. And it reminded me of when we're sitting in stats class
Stop.
and I'm just bullshitting, just saying shit. Like, you know what I mean? Just like off the cuff to Ben because he's the only one sitting next to me. And he's cackling. There's like 300 people and they keep looking at us. I'm like, Ben, you're not allowed to sit by me in stats anymore because I want to keep making comments, but you can't shut the fuck up.
So when my girlfriend gets mad at me, she'll probably listen to this and I'll get in trouble and I'll do exactly this. I just start laughing, like scream laughing as loud as possible.
It's a good defense mechanism.
I was going through a rough stage.
That's an insane response.
Yeah, no, it is.
What are you talking about? That's nuts.
He's like the Joker. He laughs and
no, but then you can stop laughing. Like you do the laugh and then you're like, no, I went to a comedy show and I was going through a rough patch a few years ago and some friends took me to one and I was doing my scream laugh the entire time. And I don't know how I didn't get called out. And I think that make this a better story, but I vowed to never go back to a comedy club because
if I was doing a stand-up set and I heard your laugh, I would absolutely call you out.
Yeah.
You become the subject.
We're talking about the high-pitched one because I've got a few different laughs, right?
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the high-pitched cackle where a 300-person auditorium turns and looks at you.
Yeah, but that's almost like it's inappropriate to laugh now and I can't help it kind of laugh, dude.
That's
like the hardest one.
That's why I hate like moments of silence because I nervous laugh. Yeah, and I'll start doing that scream cackle. And it's like 9/11 Memorial Day remembrance, and everybody's looking at me, and I'm like, no, I'm fine.
I think you're psycho, dude. I think you need to either A, go see a therapist, or B,
go do some ayahuasca and have a dream about having a baby named Isabella, and I'm pregnant.
I'll put it in.
Or join a cult.
I'll be the dad.
Before you put on those nights.
I'll be the dad.
Ben barely got the sentence out, and Kyle's like, I'll do it.
I'll do it. I'll shoot that baby in you.
Yeah. I'll be your baby daddy. Can I be your baby daddy?
I'll kiss you right on the mustache, dude.
Between Devin and I, who would you rather be the baby daddy? Would it be me?
Hey, you know what we could do is we can video it and then send it to
Kyle.
He's on Twitter. I'm sure they love it.
Kyle's dressed up as Indiana Jones with his
It's just the Cub necessities.
Hey, just remember @Cub Podcast. That's the Twitter account.
That's really been the message of all of this. Just don't mistake Cub necessities on Twitter. Don't mix them up. They're different.
Don't mix them up, dude.
For now,
do mix them up and just enjoy the ride, dude.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to
do ayahuasca and don't join a cult.
The content is not curated by the same individual.
It's not the same people.
It's not the same people.
All right, guys. How long have we been on? 2 hours?
Yeah.
Yeah. Has it really? Yeah, almost.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
Man, I'm doing nothing with my life anymore.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I'm living at quarantine with the parents, which I'm really grateful that they're going to have me, when I don't have a job and saving me money. So I love my parents, and I think they don't mind having me around. But after Kyle and I did the last episode, this was the first time you did video, right, Kyle?
Yeah.
I did it. Yeah. So I posted the video for Kyle, and first text I get says, "Nice bunk bed," or "Cool bunk bed, dude." I was like, and you know who it was? And you're talking about you can't name drop people on podcasts.
You can say who it was, dude.
Oh, it was fucking Jack.
Did you tell him that it leaves more room for activities?
Well, no. What I said is I built.
It's so funny that he just texted you, "Cool bunk
No, that's what I said.
bro."
Cool bunk bed, dude. And he's totally being a dick. And my response was, "Thanks. I built it myself." It's literally like just pieces of wood that my stepdad and I bought, and we built it. So a few years back, so there was room for people
for activities.
Well, room for beds, so that when my brother and I were home for the summer, we'd actually have somewhere to live when they moved in his house. But anyways, I just want to say fuck you, Jack. That's really
all right. Well, let's end on that. Hey, let's end on a 1, 2, 3. Fuck you, Jack. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Fuck you, Jack.
All right. See you guys.
Have a good one, guys.